So in today's video, as the title suggests, is what I really want to talk about is really about why a lot of interestingly rich people look relatively poor, or not necessarily poor, but certainly minimalistic. You know, very, very simple, the way that they look, the way that they dress, the way that they present themselves, because I think it goes a lot more in depth than what a lot of people think. I think the big idea is that also I want to start by maybe prefacing, while every single person is still in this video, before everyone starts to lose attention span as they're watching through the video. Hopefully you have the attention span to watch through, but let's just say if you don't, the idea really is that I think it's important to start by saying is that this does not necessarily mean that we're advocating people to dress homeless, to eat ramen noodles all day, to just spend absolutely no money. If anything, I think it's important to spend some level of money because it's going to help the economy. At the end of the day, there are things that are actually very much worth it to spend money on. But the big idea is that it just means that you don't have to live a very lavish lifestyle, and why a lot of rich people actually live very humbly, to the point that you would never actually guess how much, or the fact that a lot of rich people are rich just based off of the way they look, because in many cases they actually dress very, very minimalistically, very, very simple, plain white t-shirt, classic jeans, classic sneakers, or anything like that. And the idea really is that that's what we're going to explore in today's video. Now, I did make a video talking a little bit about 5 lessons I learned when I was unemployed, and why this is related is because during that time period I really did actually genuinely live very, very poor at that time period, in the sense that I was eating a lot of ramen noodles, a lot of dollar pizza, but I do not necessarily recommend it. But of course, we already talked about it in that video. I'll put it at the end screen so you can watch it after this video if you survive and make it to the end of this video, so maybe treat that as a challenge. And I do have also another video that talks a little bit about why I personally live relatively frugally and rarely spend money. I do spend money, but just don't spend a lot of money. But that video is hopefully going to talk about the frugal living side to hopefully help you guys and maybe get a little bit of insight. So with that being said, let's get this video started. But as always, if you guys enjoy videos like this, like, comment, feel free to comment a hello, hi, or a story, or honestly really anything. Consider subscribing, hitting the bell, or you can watch to the end and decide from there, but hopefully you'll find some value in this. So with that being said, let's get this video rolling and started. So when it comes to building wealth, wealth is really just a balance between how much money you make and then how much money you can physically keep and hold on to. So there are a lot of people that can make a lot of money, but they also spend a lot of money, and sometimes unintentionally as well. There are some people that I know that make a lot of money, but they're in a lot of debt. You know, maybe they have to owe a lot in student loans. They took out a massive loan to go to college, to go to university. Maybe they have a family to support. Maybe they had kids very early on. Maybe they have a very expensive wife or a very expensive husband. It really just depends on the situation. And then there's also a lot of people that are on the reverse side, where they really don't make a lot of money. And this was actually what I lived through at that time period, is that I lived through a period of time where I was surviving off of very low income. But the good news is that I was able to keep a lot of it because I really didn't have that many expenses beyond basic necessities. I was single. I didn't have a lot of bills to pay. I had bills to pay, obviously, but I mean like a lot of bills to pay in the sense that I graduated debt free. I didn't have any kids. I was single. I didn't have any loans. I didn't even have a car at that time period. I didn't even have a car. And really because of that reason, I was able to keep most of the money. I did make a video talking about how I saved my first $100,000, which I'll put at the end screen, or maybe I'll even put it at the description so you can check it out after watching this video. But it highlights a lot of the ways that I was able to save a lot of money. And so the idea really behind this is that the more money you are able to keep, the more money you are also able to save from not having to buy the expensive clothes, the expensive food, the expensive fine dining, the expensive vacations, the expensive cars, the luxury, the goods, and all that kind of stuff. It means that the more money you can also physically keep. And that is why a lot of times acting poor or living a poor man's lifestyle can actually save save you a lot of money and actually potentially help you one day become rich because you're able to keep most of that money. And that's one of the most important things that's really, really important to absorb to building wealth. It's that any kind of important life decision you make, you have to really factor in how that's going to potentially impact you financially. So big life decisions such as like marriage, having kids, starting a mortgage, buying a car, and that a lot of times it's the rich people that live the poor lifestyle that are able to do this. Now, going back is that I think, again, going back to mention is that living poor does not mean you necessarily have to dress homeless, eat ramen noodles, because there still is a balance that you have to try to be able to maintain at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, when it comes to things such as like clothing, looks, people still do judge you based off of looks, as truth as it is, or as hard as it may be to accept. People are just naturally shallow. So whether you are talking about dating, relationships, business, people are more likely to trust you when you dress well, when you dress nice, when you look presentable. But you don't have to necessarily wear Louis Vuitton gear or like, expensive luxury jewelry or anything like that. You can still live relatively humble and live and still be well put together, especially because most people, if not for the logo, they cannot tell the difference. Again, if not for the logo, they cannot tell the difference between a blank white t-shirt that comes from Louis Vuitton and a blank white t-shirt that comes from like a fruit company, a Fruit Loom. What is that name of that really cheap white t-shirt brand? I don't know. But basically a basic t-shirt. That's the idea really behind this. And on top of all this, I think it's also really important to insert this, which is really about the fact that sometimes if you're not careful with how you spend money, it can actually be a little bit more expensive sometimes to be poor than it is to be rich. I think I made a video a while back talking about why it's more expensive sometimes to be poor than it is to be rich, which I think is a really interesting take on this topic. I'll put that video also at the end screen, or if it's not at the end screen, it'll be in the description down below so you guys can watch that after this video. But it talks a little bit about why a lot of times it's so important to find that balance between how you spend your money and spending it wisely. When you save a lot of money, or when you live relatively poor and act a poor man's lifestyle, you're able to save a lot of money, as we just mentioned. And because of that reason, now you can use that money to save up, to build up your wealth. Or even better, if you are able to do it, not only are you able to save that money, but to make it even smarter, you can potentially take that money and maybe even invest that money to buy appreciating assets. So things such as like stocks, real estate, bonds, all those mutual funds, index funds, all things that can basically increase in value as the years roll on. And that is one of the keys that's going to happen to help build wealth. I know for me, this was something that really helped me, was that although I was living off of low income, I saved a lot of money at that time period, and a lot of the money that I used, I put it inside of the stock market, which helped me to grow. Now, admittedly, I was a relatively early comer because I've been actually investing for many years now, but it was one of those things that helped me to grow a lot of the money that I had at that particular time period that I think hopefully everyone can take away from this particular video. Now, for the rest of this video, I want to maybe now just talk a little bit about the lifestyle decisions of why a lot of rich people actually, on top of the actual building wealth side, why a lot of rich people tend to live relatively humble or poor lifestyles. Not poor lifestyles, as we already mentioned, but more humble lifestyles. And it's really because the first reason why is because a lot of times when you're rich, it's very easy to become a target. So it's not just about trying to make a lot of money, but it's also trying to protect your money as well. So not just saving it, but to protect it. Because a lot of times when you are rich, if you ever become rich, or if you are already rich, maybe because, we have a very diverse group of people watching this video, if you happen to already be rich, the more money you have, it also means the more you have to potentially lose and put up on the line. So in order to protect their wealth, a lot of rich people actually dress and present themselves very humbly because it helps them to live in stealth. When you live in stealth, you can live very low key. And as a result, because of that reason, you are less likely to become a target and be able to sort of enjoy life on your own terms, so you don't have to do it. And I think that's the big thing about it. The second thing really about it is really about the values of a lot of rich people. A lot of rich people, because they value the comfort and the security of being rich, for a lot of them, it's more about having comfort and the security and the ability to buy things than to actually physically buy that particular something. So just because you have the money to afford certain things, it does not mean that you necessarily want to afford it if you feel like it's too overpriced or too expensive. Rich people have that mindset a lot of times where they're very, very careful with how they spend money. That's why I always say is that it's not necessarily about buying nothing, but about buying almost nothing, or being very, very particular about what you actually physically spend money on, trying to buy things, but understand what's actually important in your life. Rich people tend to have different values than a lot of the other people in our world, and that's what keeps them particularly rich. It's because they know what's important. They know how to spend their money, they know how to save money, they know how to invest money, they're very, very careful with money. And one of the areas of life that involves, or one of the areas that, allows a lot of people to build wealth is by living that particular humble lifestyle of not, spending on luxurious vacations or anything like that, because a lot of times people just know what they know the value of things. They know when it's worth it to shell out thousands of dollars and when it's better to just save those couple $1,000s to buy something instead, or buy something more useful instead. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway for everything, or one of the many takeaways that we've already mentioned from this particular video. So with that being said, that's really what I wanted to just share in today's video about why it's so important to look relatively poor or humble in order to become rich someday. And if you act a lot of these lifestyles habits out, it can potentially help you to maybe get there someday. And it can really help all of us, me included at that same time, because I was also someone that was living through it as well. So with that being said, if you guys made it to the end, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, stay humble, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.